The Valley Talking News and KRUV Radio Sun enjoy bringing people into your home by means of our audio connection, especially this program. Rusty, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, I asked you a minute ago how I should introduce you. You tell me how to introduce you.
Well, I hope to be someday a best-selling author.
All right, I'm impressed. I know that you have written at least 4 books because we have done audio for 4 books, the latest of which was The Battle for Stephanie. I'm going to ask you to tell us about each one of those books. Would you do that?
Sure. The first book that I published in 2018 was called The Rehabilitation of Miss Little. It's about a young woman who's been teased and bullied for most of her life, and she decides to get away from it. She's going to go to college in another state. Well, it doesn't quite work out, and she still gets bullied and teased, but she happens to draw the attention of a young man who kind of takes her under his wing and helps build her self-esteem and her confidence back. There are some twists and turns that involves him with some legal issues, and she and some newfound friends help him find resolution to those issues. The second book, which was published in 2019, is called Moist on the Mountain, and I get a kick out of that because there's this thing out there that women don't like the word moist, but I've had a lot of women buy the book, so
there you go. Who knew?
It's a story about 3 high school graduates, 3 boys, who are going to be going their separate ways, and they want to spend one last camping trip together. They discover across the lake from their campsite a camp that is run by a couple who brings in troubled teens, and they find that there are mostly girls at this camp, and teenage hormones run amok. So there is a little danger at the end that they work through. So it kind of is a little more than teenage rollicking. The third book, which my wife says is the best book, is called Gorge Justice. And it's about a young woman in high school who has experienced some trauma, and the family moves away to the Columbia Gorge between Oregon and Washington. They find that the trouble followed them, and she suffers through some more trauma at the hands of the same guy who did it to her previously, and she is seriously injured. She recovers, and the man who did this to her, they get a different kind of justice. The legal system fails her, but there's a different kind of justice. The last book, Gorge Justice, was published in 2021. And the last book is called Battle for Stephanie, and it was published earlier this year. And it's about a family who suddenly is thrown into turmoil because the mother takes off with the daughter, Stephanie, and it turns out that it's a struggle with the in-laws wanting to have the child to themselves. Well, another family member on the father's side intervenes, takes Stephanie from her school, and then they mount a search and rescue attempt. And the in-laws also mount their own rescue attempt with some mercenaries and there ends up being a gun battle to get Stephanie back.
I have directed for audio all 4 of those books. The most recent, The Battle for Stephanie, and I think I liked that one the best. That was a little more sit on the edge of your seat, I think, maybe than even Gorge Justice. But good for you. You're doing what you enjoy. I'm thrilled to death that you can say that. Tell me, when did you start writing?
Oh, I started writing in junior high school. In fact, 3 of those first 4 books were started when I was in high school. Gorge Justice started right after I graduated from high school as kind of a different kind of story. And then life happened, and all of those stories and some others sat in a box for 30 some odd years until I got back to them. And each of them, with 30 years of life behind me and experience, I ramped them up a little bit and changed them. They were, in the beginning, they were a little kind of basic and things like that, as you might imagine from an 18-year-old, 16 to 18-year-old getting started. But this last one, Battle for Stephanie, I drew kind of from my own life experiences for that one.
Tell me, you've been a mercenary in your part-time?
No, not that part.
Not that part. Okay.
Um,
and not the grandpa who got got crazy.
No.
Okay. All right.
But it kind of relates to portions of my own life that I kind of don't want to get into.
Yeah. Well, they say you're supposed to write about what you know, and so since you lived through some of that, then maybe that helped to ring true.
I think in that respect it's true, but the rest of the story, the search and rescue part, I'm kind of really proud of that because of the imagery that I brought to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I drew on my own background, having grown up in the mountains of Wyoming, to set the stage for that environment.
Okay. Tell us about the training and experience you've had to date.
For novel writing, I've just kind of done it. Okay. There's been no real training. I took a creative writing class in college in LeGrand, and funny, the professor, when I wanted to drop the class because I didn't get along with her, she says, "Well, you'll never be a writer."
Oh, well.
Well, here I am.
Well, I'll show you.
Well, the same professor started something called the Writing Proficiency Exam at that college, and it was a test that hardly ever anyone passed on the first try. I did.
Yeah, there you go.
And I wanted to take, and she scored every single one of those tests with 2 other professors. And the other professors were different for different readers. I wanted to take those scores and just put them under her nose and say, "See, I don't know if I'm the first one that ever passed it the first try, but I'm one of, at least."
What are you doing now? I know that until recently you had been working really hard for independent news media. Now you're writing. Have you got something underway that you want to tell us about?
I do.
Good. Let's hear it.
First, I'll tell you about some of the other things I'm doing.
Okay.
Of course, there are home projects to do. We installed some artificial grass. Well, we had it installed. We changed our gate and a couple other things. My wife had me put up some butterfly lights, and now I've got a painting project ahead of me. I've also continued my YouTube videos on the Viewpoint Lake project. In fact, I just shot one a couple hours ago. I've also was asked by Hugh Duncan to be part of the Sun City Community Assistance Network board, and I accepted.
Good for you.
Next week will be my first board meeting. And I have been working since about March or April on my 5th book. And I am into chapter 20. This book is going to be called Death in Hazard.
Death in Hazard, okay.
The inspiration for it came from the song Hazard by Richard Marx. Every time my wife played that song on her CDs, I thought, there's a story in there. And so I did it. Well, I'm doing it. Hopefully I can get that completed and go through my rounds of editing in time to get it to the publisher early next year.
Okay. Well, I hope you'll give us the opportunity to